Hello, this is Patrick McCrory at home in the kitchen again. And Joe, who's holding the camera, can't stop giggling. I don't know why. So today, what we're going to do is make some Irish barmbrack. It's sometimes known as brack, or also in England it would be known as tea loaf. And it's quite appropriate because tea is one of the main ingredients. This particular dish, which is the tea loaf, the barmbrack, is a traditional thing to have in Ireland, particularly at Halloween. That's what it's associated with. And in fact, it would be served when it's cut up into slices. It was traditional to find concealed within the loaf a small silver coloured ring, and the idea of that is that it was lucky and that it could signify that the person who happened to get the ring would Joe's shaking about the camera a lot because he can't stop giggling. I don't know why. Getting the ring can signify that that person would be getting married within a short while, within a year. There's other items used to be in, like a cloth, which means you should hide yourself under a bushel. There was a string, and there was a stick could be found. A stick meant there was going to be conflict. I think the idea of the cloth is that you weren't going to get married, and not imminently. So that's what we're going to make this evening, and here at home in the kitchen in Nottingham. And the first ingredients you have to start with is black tea with soaked fruit. That's mixed fruit with peel in it. It can also be simply sultanas or raisins, but I always use mixed fruit. And it has to be soaked overnight. It can be soaked longer. The longer it is soaked, the more succulent the dried fruit becomes. So I often leave it for 24 hours at least. And the stronger the tea, the more the flavour as well. So if we can just face this way now, this is the tea and the fruit already having been soaked. And the other ingredient that can be added, we just keep the camera there a second, is ginger. Now the ginger can be, as here, can be crystallized ginger, which is dried and already sugared. That's not ginger, that's coconut. We add that as well. It's already been added in this case. And the ginger is, with the camera on it, it's like this, and it's simply pieces of ginger, which is described here as fiery ginger. That's crystallized, so it's sugared. Or this type of ginger here, which is, as you can see, it is root ginger. This is very coarse, and it means that, in fact, it can be grated in, but being left overnight will be fine. The actual amounts are just to taste. It's not critical. So the ginger had already been put in there, so that's only for demonstration purposes. And the same with some zest of orange, which can be grated in, which again has already been done, so it's already in there. And the other thing, surprisingly, is salt. Seems as though we can't escape salt in everything that we eat these days, but it's something that was traditional. And here we're using wholemeal self-raising flour. Self-raising isn't as common as other flours. I don't know why wholemeal often is not self-raising, but this is. So you don't need to add any raising agent, and of course you don't need any bleach. Did I say bleach? I mean, you don't need to add. We don't actually put it in there, which I've just done. We put it into a separate bowl, like so. There's no measuring needed here. Is the camera on this, on the flour? There's no measuring needed. Particularly, although I will give all the measurements on the website, and the website is www.mccrorys.co.uk. That's MCCRORYS, mccrorys.co.uk. And now, having mix the salt into the flour, I also, again this is a matter of taste, I would add some porridge oats just to give it a bit more texture, and that again is only to taste. Not too many, because it won't rise so much if it's over heavy, and that has to be mixed really quite thoroughly, so the salt's in there as well. And the other thing to add is dark brown moist sugar, or sometimes called muscovado sugar. That's this one here. It's quite heavy. There we go. And again, just to taste. But if you're particular and you want everything to be exact, I will put all the measurements and the ingredients and the weights onto the website, mccrorys.co.uk. And now what you've got to do is make sure that there's no lumps of sugar in the flour. So that's the only laborious bit you have to do, really. Everything else is fairly straightforward. And in the other bowl next to me here, the glass bowl, that's got the fruit and also the peel and the black tea. And what we're doing here, you've got to just make sure when we're talking about ingredients that you've got enough liquid. You can always add more flour, but it's difficult if you haven't got enough liquid when you start. And the other thing you've got to do is add 1 egg, which if the camera stays on there a minute, this is adding 1 egg. Now it has to be beaten, so what I do is 1 egg to that quantity. What I do is take some of the liquid out of the tea mixture to make it easier to beat it and to mix it. It might look very appetizing at the minute, but it ends up as being really quite aromatic. And there we are. And we just beat that up like so. And And if you have the slightest doubt that you've got enough liquid compared to the flour that you've already dished out and mixed with the sugar, there's no harm in simply adding some more tea, which would be very strong already, like that. And that means you can mix it even more thoroughly. And there we go. And that's your egg, now easily beaten into the fruit. And having done that, the next stage is to gradually add, possibly with a posh teacup, right round Darby, no less in this case, you'd simply gradually add liquid, if we're into the bowl here, to the flour, and you fold it in, is how I think you could describe it, so that it's a bit like mixing concrete. If you look down into it, you can see that it does gradually take on a form, and surprisingly it doesn't seem to generally ever go lumpy. It seems to quite easily stay smooth, and you can see there the texture of it. It's almost reacting with the flour. It becomes, in texture, I would say, gelatinous. It's got that lovely skin that it forms almost as soon as the liquid comes into contact with the flour. And this is doing it a little bit gradual. Now the consistency that you want, I would say, is that it should almost pour a thick liquid mix, not like a normal bread mix that you might expect. And if you have, it looks like you have an excess of liquid and fruit mix, it's best to try and use the fruit to keep it rich. We're not going to put any silver rings or anything in this time because it's not Halloween, but it also would have been eaten on high days and holidays as a celebration treat. And it's certainly at that time of the year, Halloween, it will be starting to get wintry, and this would be, well, at the minute, it can be eaten often St. Patrick's Day as well, which happens to fall in the middle of Lent, which might be a conflict for some, but I believe that provided there's no fat, you're not necessarily breaking your Lent fast. And there is no fat in this at all. There is the egg yolk, of course, but that's not necessarily treated as fat, depending on your conscience. So I haven't judged this too badly for quantities, and you want the fruit to be reasonably evenly mixed within there. And if I just now pour this as an example, this is the consistency, no dryness in it, whatever, you shouldn't see any dry flour anywhere. And if I just let that drop off the spatula there, like so, that's the right sort of consistency you're looking for. So you end up with a moist cake. And there we go. The other thing you have to be aware of is that, and I often forget, is that it will rise, and so it can end up coming up above the rim of the baking tin. This is, as you can see, a Pyrex dish, so it's oven proof, and I'm using this just as an example. But, and here we have, I'm going to take out now one that we, or two in fact, that we did earlier, and these are now already well baked, and there we go. And that's the sort of colour you're looking for. Should be quite hard, and the thing is they have to be put in the oven and left in for, I'll put all these details on later, left in for 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes on gas mark 4 or 180 degrees centigrade. There's the bread. It's quite hard. It should be left for about 20 minutes at least before taking it out of the tin, or the in this case the dish, the Pyrex dish. And this is one that we actually took out of the oven earlier, and it's not quite cool yet, but again it's quite hard, and I'm going to experiment now. The way that you can test whether or not it is ready is to put, really it's a skewer you should put in it, like so. You put a skewer in and you bring it out and there's nothing sticking to the skewer, that means it's ready. And this is the proof of the pudding now is there's no doughy or sogginess there. It's got a crust all around it, and really what I'm aiming at is for it to be a bit like myself, really. Hard on the outside and soft on the inside, and then you've achieved exactly what you're looking for. And this now can be well wrapped. It can actually be coated with sugar syrup, although I think that's a little bit over the top, literally, as an extra treat, or well wrapped, and it can be stored. It can also be frozen, of course, and that's another option, is to freeze the mix and then bake it fresh, so you can have a few batches, not necessarily all at the same time. So that is the Halloween barmbrack that we've prepared and cooked this evening. So all I can say is enjoy it and look forward to the next recipe, which will be soda bread, a bit simpler. Thank you and good evening.